All right, scholars, welcome. This is your favorite tag team. Schaefer here.
Curry here.
This is how we're going to be doing lectures during coronavirus psychology. So put your phones away, buckle up.
Okay, we're on to our next key concept. Notice this is different from what's in your packet. We're skipping one. Jump to stereotypes, and looking at this slide, notice it has two parts. It'll ask you about the formation of stereotypes, and there could be a separate question about the effects of stereotypes. You'll see it on paper 1, section A and B.
Okay, pause the video, and there is a reading on the class website that is titled Stereotype Background. It has some handwritten notes on it. Start where it tells you to start and stop where it tells you to stop to give you a little bit of context on what we are doing. Okay, now that you've read for take number 3, but that's okay. Now that you've read for some background, these are things that you want to address in your introduction. Okay? Our attitudes and our beliefs, which are formed from our social identity, which is the last key concept we just talked about. Our attitudes are very similar amongst our in-groups. We believe the same things. We also want to raise our in-group up, and a lot of times that's at the expense of our out-groups. We overgeneralize and we try to make assumptions about outgroups, which is really the foundation of stereotypes. We talked about schema. We talked about our brain making shortcuts already. That's really what your brain is doing when it's making stereotypes. Some of the things and behaviors that you and your in-group are doing, some of them can be explicit and some of them are implicit, and our research will touch on both of those. Okay, so stop taking notes, pause this video, and there are a couple videos that you can watch and click within the PowerPoint that will give you some real-life context of what we're talking about. One of them is a more modern version. The Clark doll experiment is a little older, but gives you an idea of what stereotypes can do and how they can affect even young children's mindsets.
So when we're looking at stereotypes, for our working definition, we are talking about generalizations about groups of people. Last key concept, we talk about social cognition, the way we think about relationships. What we're going to see here is when we are in groups and we are divided into social groups, we see groups based on similar characteristics, so race or ethnicity or whatever that may be, and we determine what somebody is based on what's typical within that group, and based on those similarities, we tend to make overgeneralizations about all people within that group. This is good because it can simplify the social world. You can have expectations, you can quickly respond to situations. However, we tend to ignore the differences, which is where stereotypes have the negative social effects, where you make assumptions about people, what they are, how they might act, and that can lead to conflict in social settings.
So now, specifically focusing on what you're going to be asked as far as the IB test goes for stereotypes, the first thing that you could be asked is the formation of stereotypes, so how they're created. We're going to look at a concept of, or you're going to look at that tomorrow, of how these stereotypes are created, and we're going to use illusory correlation for that, which we'll get into more tomorrow. But most of them are formed indirectly, okay? Implicitly from gatekeepers, which should be a familiar term that we looked at from your inculturation and the way that you get your culture. Those same types of people are going to be the ones that instill your beliefs and attitudes towards members of your outgroups. And so really cultural schemas and your social identity are the foundation of how we develop our stereotypes.
Okay, dudes, now you're going to test your own stereotypes. If you look at this slide, there's a link to an implicit association test. This is going to give you clear instructions. You're going to push buttons. You're going to look at pictures. You're going to find out how racist or sexist or anything is you are secretly. Implicit means you don't realize it. So go ahead, take the test, and check out your results.
There are questions on the next slide that we want you to answer in your notebook, and then you can answer those just right in your notes that you've taken so far today. And then there are examples of results that we've seen before that we posted, so you can compare for that. So once you've taken the implicit bias test and you've answered those questions in terms of you, compared them to the results that we've had, and then there's one more video that you should click on and watch, and then that will be it for today. And I know you're all disappointed and you're probably going to have a tough time sleeping tonight with excitement to continue learning coronavirus psych, but you'll have to wait until tomorrow after you're done with all that. Thanks for tuning in.
Goodbye.